that wish to speak in support of the application present today. Beverly, did you receive any earlier notifications that there'll be supporters here tonight?
No, Chair, I didn't receive any notification about supporters.
Righto, and I don't think, no, there isn't anybody that's sort of alerted me to the fact. So we'll move on. So that we'll move on to ward councillors. Are there any ward councillors representing London Bridge of West Bermondsey here this evening?
Hello, Chair. I'm here.
Hello, Damien. Hi. So do you wish to speak on this particular application?
If I may, Chair, that would be lovely.
Indeed. So just for members of the public, Damien, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, saying who you are, and then I'll start the time thereafter. Thank you. And you're welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Damien O'Brien from London Bridge and West Bermondsey Ward, which includes the site that's being considered tonight.
Right. So when you're ready, you
okay.
may start. Yes. You've got up to 3 minutes, of course.
Okay, cool. Okay, so opposite the site is the Ark. It was developed as called Century House, which is a residential development. Over time, residents have moved into this new block, and I mean over time since the original 2015 application was made for the site and went through its iterations. And many habitable rooms now directly face the street frontage of this application. In terms of hours of use and street noise, the consented use as B1 commercial is much more conducive to a harmonious coexistence with the Ark residents than a hotel will be. Not just from an overlooking and light perspective, but also from the fact the hotel will operate 24/7, whereas office workers will leave the building empty in the evenings and at weekends, thus not impinging on the amenity of the Ark residents and other residents on Tanner Street as well. Much has been said about transport, but it's actually the key issue here. It goes without saying that most hotel guests will actually arrive and depart by taxi, Uber or Black Cab. Tanner Street is extremely confined and narrow, as you can probably see from the plan views in your packs, with parking bays restricting road width to a single lane on both Tanner Street itself and its main feeder road, which is called Riley Road. Exacerbating this is the fact that the application site is on a curve in the road and is opposite the intersection with Maltby Street. Transport reports indicate a site has a PTAL of 4. Now this would be considered acceptable for a B1 use of the building, as workers commute on a daily basis and they'll get to work out the local bus system to get them to and from work. But it's irrelevant as a hotel because visitors to London will not have sufficient local knowledge of bus routes, nor have how to navigate by foot. They're going to jump in a cab, even from London Bridge. There are no direct bus services from London Bridge. The buses all pass across Tooley Street and into Jamaica Road. So guests would have to know which bus to catch, which stop to alight from, and then be able to walk the rest of the way down to the hotel. Also, the hotel, unlike the Premier Inn, which is on Tower Bridge Road itself, this hotel is not on the main road, it's on a side street, and it's on a bend around the corner of the side street as well, which would make it harder to find. Granted, I know people use their phones and that sort of thing, but even so, it is somewhat hidden away. We've been advised unofficially by the operator of a nearby hotel that cab movements will be 2 to 3 times greater than advised in the report. And the reported numbers are based on the trick system using the high PTAL number, which I've explained is not relevant to a hotel. I assert would be relevant to B1 though. Then we have delivery vehicles of up to 12 metres.
Oh, sorry, Damien, I didn't give you your 30-second warning. But
I was waiting for the 30 seconds.
That was your 3 minutes.
That's my 3 minutes.
So
okay. Well, if anyone wants to ask, I'll have a couple more points.
Yeah, so but Bill, what would you, yes, go ahead.
Well, would the local council like to give us more information, please?
Thank you. I was very nearly there. I was waiting for that 30 seconds.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
No
I got
worries,
distracted.
No problem. So yeah, so we've got delivery vehicles coming up to 12 metres in length. They need to make good their escape. And as a local councillor, obviously, I'm not just looking at this site, I'm looking at other issues in the surrounding area. And obviously the Maltby Street Market is one of them, where they've extended onto Maltby Street itself. So that intersection can't be used for egress if there is a delivery on the weekend. Now, I know that we're supposed to be conditioning that there won't be, but if there's a wedding or anything like that in the hotel and a vehicle turns up, I don't know how it's going to get out of that area. In fact, the Maltby Street people are putting signs up on the corner of Riley Road, trying to stop people from turning into Tanner Street so they don't have that problem. Also, in terms of curbside restrictions, there's a CPZ in place, but it finishes at 6:30 on weekdays and not on weekends. And there are a few parking bays there. So if guests are allowed to bring a car down for the weekend and use one of those bays, that's going to add the pressure on local residents' parking bays. And I think the final point to mention as well is you can't drive from Tanner Street through the railway arches into Druid Street, which is on the other side, because it's one way coming back towards you. And one of the documents that the agent sent me, it said that taxis could travel from west to east. Say you picked up at London Bridge, travel from west to east, and then come down Druid Street and through the one-way system. But that would be very circuitous, because you'd have to drive all the way down Jamaica Road till you got to Abbey Street, turn from Abbey Street into Druid Street, and then drive all the way back again. And the final point is that on Druid Street, there's a lot of tap bars and things, as some of you may be aware. Don't know if you've partaken, but it is quite a busy little area. And we've been approached as ward councillors about the possibility of making Druid Street pedestrian only on the weekends, which would then completely close that route off. So I guess my overarching concern of the area is the use of the building as a hotel and its accessibility, given it is a very tight, narrow, winding little road, and we've got a cycleway also passing through it. And to turn around once Maltby Street is closed, even if it's a taxi, would require a 3-point turn, which requires reversing on the highway. And I know that that's a bit of a no-no when it comes to transport terms. I think that the B1 extant approval doesn't expire until January. There hasn't been anything done to that site since the old tin box factory was demolished back in 2015. And I think there would be a far better use of the site in terms of its impact on the local environment and local residents than this hotel would be. So I would encourage this committee to refuse this application with an addendum to encourage the applicant to go ahead with its B1 extant permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any additional questions for Councillor O'Brien? No, I've got Councillor Seaton. Anyone else at the moment? Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor O'Brien, for your presentation. If I continue the theme of suitability of the site and hotel room quantum in this locality, are you aware of the C1 class usage in the area, and are you aware of either number of rooms or current square meterage in that area?
I was aware that there's a lot more accommodation available, but I was kind of surprised at the number when it was all added up. That's something I've not done. I know there is a major refurb of a building at 151 to 157 Tower Bridge Road, which is near the Premier Inn, which will be apart hotels. There are more apart hotels further down Tower Bridge Road as well. So when you take the quantum of rooms that are available and then split that into the different types of rooms, you know, you've got a broad spectrum of room availability from the Dixon Hotel and La Lite, which are much higher class than the Premier Inn, right down to Airbnb. So it depends how you look at it, I think. I think you can use those numbers to strengthen your argument on both sides.
Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions for Councillor O'Brien, colleagues? No? Well, I think that was pretty succinct, Damien. I think it was
Thank you, Chair.
clear. Yeah. All righty. Thank you very much for coming along. Okay, colleagues. We now move to any additional questions for officers. Now, for clarification, I've got Councillor Martin Seaton probably wants to ask around questions around hotel saturation in the vicinity. Any other questions for clarity? There might be questions around transport. Given the comments from Councillor O'Brien for Alex, the transport officer, the narrow nature, you probably want to sort of clarify again the system used to assess the number of taxi drop-offs, please, so that we're absolutely clear, because there's a bit of discrepancy in terms of, or differing of opinion. So I'll start off with Martin. Off you go, Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. And of course, you've guessed correctly. I just like clarification on the methodology used to determine the number of hotels. In fact, I'd really want clarification of the class usage within a half mile or so of this location, the numbers of either rooms or square meterage in this location. I wonder if the officers have that information handy.
Thank you, councillors. I think firstly, I'd like to note what we need to compare is apples with apples. Our survey refers to half a mile, so approximately 750 metres. The applicants, I've revisited their comments, and it's not
Alex, you're breaking up. Sorry, I just lost the clarity. Or can you start again, because you're breaking up?
Radio.
Right, perhaps. Do you wish to? Right, so Alex, could you just stop there, please? Because I haven't heard any of that. I don't know if it's to do with your internet connection, but perhaps if you switch off your video, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better?
It is much better. Yes, the clarity's there now. So could you start again in terms of your response to Councillor Seaton's question?
Yes, of course. I think the first point is we need to compare apples with apples. The assessment that we've made looked at approximately half a mile distance around the application site in terms of radius, which is approximately 750 metres in terms of radius. The applicant's comments, which we received and took into account, which quoted the number of hotels and rooms which were referenced earlier, are within a kilometre, which is a greater distance. So I think we need to note that. In terms of the methodology, we used essentially the same methodology looking at Google and seeing what visitor accommodation hotels we came up with, and obviously yes, there is potentially some error in that. We may have missed some, but I think some of the hotels which are being referenced will be outside of that area which we had undertaken as officers. So that's just a point of clarification, but again, I think it's important we reiterate the point. There isn't necessarily a set radius surrounding a site that we need to look at when looking at over dominance of visitor accommodation. It's the broad character, and again, we would assert and reiterate that there is a very mixed character within this area. As the applicant team noted, there are other areas within Southwark where there are a far greater number of hotels within a smaller area, including the appeal site which was referenced earlier on Blackfriars Road, which the planning inspectorate did raise the point that doesn't account to over dominance of visitor accommodation. Obviously it's on a case-by-case basis, but that is for me a very strong material consideration, and I'd again like to draw members' attention back to that.
Sorry, Chair, if I may, just for clarity's sake, and I'm grateful for Alex's response, and again reminding us of a have a pass application which went through to the inspectors. But I'm still asserting that we consider all applications on their merit. What I'm trying to understand is the numbers of class C1 usage in the locality. I'm attempting to understand the number of rooms in its immediate locality, or if you can't give us rooms, square meterage. And I believe what Alex has said is that he doesn't actually know, and has simply accepted the submission from the applicant. If I may, Chair, I believe that's wholly unsatisfactory, and I would wish that we obtain the information so it's clear. This is the planning authority of all things, and one would expect that the planning authority are able to respond to what is a pretty obvious question to ask, the numbers of C1 usage within a mile or so of the location, but it is a material planning consideration. So my question has not been answered, certainly not anyway to my satisfaction. We don't have an authoritative figure on the number of rooms. We do not have an authoritative figure on the square meterage either, in relation to the number of homes and other class usage in the area, which means that the objector's assertion that they live there could very well be correct, but unless there's been an analysis, we are unsure. And under those circumstances, I would not support this application until I have clarification as to the numbers of rooms or square meterage that are devoted to C1 usage.
I can come back on that point. Apologies, I missed that off on my previous response. But from our research, we suggest that there's 793 within a half-mile radius.
793 rooms. Wow. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Right,
Sorry,
that's clear. Dipesh, do you have any additional
Sorry,
comments? Because
Chair, yes,
Councillor Martin Seaton is making some very strong assertions here. So we do need to receive clarification to move on, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just having a look at slides on page 21 of the member pack, and forgive me, Alex, but it says here that there are 797 bedrooms within half a mile radius, and that.
Sorry, my mistake, Dipesh, you're right.
That information is from the AM PM hotel database. So that's the data we've based that on. If it may help, Chair, I would perhaps just talk about the specific policy regarding overdominance on visitor hotel, and that's in the Southwark Plan Policy 1.12, and it says that hotel and visitor accommodation will not be permitted where there will result in the loss of residential accommodation or an overdominance of visitor accommodation in the locality. And in the reasons for that, it says that dominance by single uses, such as visitor accommodation, detracts from the vitality of an area and reduces the range of other services available. So that explains that. It's that point that Alex touched on. If there is a concentration of just hotels in an area, that can cause some harm. And the slide on page 21, sorry, forgive me, I'm just bringing it up again, shows, I think, that there, in addition to this proposal, there are 5 other hotels within that half-mile radius, and the majority of them are to the east and in the CAS, in the central activity zone.
Councillor Seaton, are you satisfied with that response?
Well, again, I'm going to be really clear that as I've visited the area, I'm quite familiar with it. There are most certainly hotels, but there are numerous other C1 buildings in that locality. Okay? And what I'm going to accept the figure of 797 bedrooms, I'm assuming that's quite specifically relating to commercial hotels with a label in front, but there are numerous other much smaller entities which don't have labels on the front of them. So I want to just talk about C1 usage, because that's the definition. So you're not actually responding to my question on C1 usage, which is what I'm trying to get at.
Right, well, so, okay, so let's just take this, because you've got a whole series of questions, and to be quite honest, and to be fair, Councillor Seaton, you've had an ample opportunity to raise this with officers before this evening, and so we shouldn't actually be going through this process right now. I'm taking a leaf out of your own book, because you were present at the briefing, and subsequently you have had an opportunity in the days post briefing to raise these questions. So I'm actually very disappointed in the fact that you're doing this right now in this particular meeting. So take the C1 class usage first of all. Dipesh or Alex, can you respond, please?
Chair, all right. Alex, do come in if you do want to, but I don't think we have that data for all C1 users. We just have the information for the hotel bedrooms.
Right, next question, Councillor Seaton.
Your point was well taken, Chair. This particular point appeared to be far more significant at this meeting, and in considering the fact that we've already met our assigned quotum for 4 hotels for the borough, and therefore all future applications are purely on their discretion.
Well, actually, Councillor Seaton, we sat at the on the same committee meeting for the 160 Blackfriars, and it was exactly the same case on that occasion. So this is actually isn't new news or data to us. So I'm not prepared to actually accept that as an issue to be raised at this evening's meeting, because you as chair of main planning committee, me as a member of that committee, are well versed with the quotas and know that that is something that's already been fully debated. So please don't bring it to this meeting now, because that's information that we've had at our disposal for quite some time. What's your next question, please?
Just for clarity, Chair, so of course, in the case of the previous application, which I'm not sure we should talk about right now, but just for clarity's sake, the job has been done. Here, of course, we have an opportunity to properly manage how we apply planning policy, so that there is a balance of both commercial, residential buildings in a given locality. And what is quite evident in some areas, there is a clear imbalance, which is what created the problem at our last meeting. Here we have an opportunity to do the job properly, to see that there is balance between commercial buildings and residential buildings and other types of buildings. There is a balance, Chair. That's what I'm seeking. And of course, our primary objective on this occasion is therefore to look at our policies and consider, is there an imbalance created by this and other subsequent applications that might be brought forward, and should we therefore accept it in its current form, or should we seek further revisions to it? Now, of course, we've not had the opportunity to seek further revisions, so I won't ask further questions, Chair, but thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Any further questions? Is that you, Kath? Would you like to ask a question? Seek further clarification? Yeah,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
looking at the slide on page 21. I noticed that the red dot, which is the application site, does not sit slap bang in the middle of the circle. The circle is slewed to the east, where there are less hotels. I note that the Shard isn't part of that. And also there's a hotel on Long Lane, which I presume just shades the edge of that circle. And I wanted to ask, should consented hotels be in this picture as well? Because there's one on New Kent Road that we consented recently.
Okay. I invite Dipesh or Alex to comment, please. Thank you for that, Kath. Observation. Right, Alex or Dipesh, can you comment, please?
Apologies, I'm just trying to bring up the slide at the moment. Dipesh, do you have it up? My computer's just crashing on me.
Sorry, sorry, Alex, I don't have it on the device that I'm using for the meeting. I can try and get it up and share it. Just give me a moment or two, please.
Oh, I can. Do you want me to try and share the content? Actually, I can do that.
Would that be helpful, Chair, if we share the slide? Chair, would that be helpful if we shared the slide?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I thought you was. I thought you were still speaking to. I beg your pardon, Dipesh. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You okay to do that, please, Alex?
Yeah, I'll
Thank
be
you.
on it now. She might be right. Okay. Yeah, it would appear, I think Councillor Whittam might be correct. That does seem to be slightly off. But I think it's important to again reiterate, as I have done previously, that the matter is not about a specific area. It's about over dominance in a locality. Is the quote of the policy. If you look at Tanner Street directly, there are no hotels on Tanner Street. Yes, there are some in the broader vicinity, but there's also a lot of residential, a lot of office, and a lot of retail within the surrounding area. So I contend, as I've noted previously, that I do not think this relatively small addition of 73-bedroom hotel.
Kath, are you happy with that? Yeah.
Well,
Any further questions?
just an observation that, you know, if we're given duff information and inaccurate information, it's difficult to make an objective decision.
Point noted, Councillor.
Alex, what point is made? Can you clarify what point is made?
Well, Councillor Whittam has, I think, rightfully pointed out that that slide is not accurate. That was provided in conjunction with discussions with the applicant. But you're right. I think it does show a slightly inaccurate representation of the site and may exclude a couple of other hotels. So I note that point. But again, reiterate my earlier comments about over domination of hotels, and there is no set radius that is defined in policy anywhere. So you have to look at it in case-by-case basis, and if in officers' opinion, if you look at it in terms of the directly surrounding streets, there are no hotels, and there isn't an over dominance, in my opinion.
Right, that's what I needed you to clarify. All right, you need to actually sum that up. It's no point just saying point taken. You need to absolutely be clear, because we've got members of public that won't necessarily be sort of following this, you know, sentence by sentence, point by you. You need to sort of sum up your points and be crystal clear. Thank you, Kath. Thank you, Alex. Any further questions, please? Right. Okay, then. So, colleagues, for the officers, that is. No? Okay. So, colleagues, we move to debate and comments. You've heard from the objectors, you've heard from the applicants, you've received clarification from the officers regarding, I think, the main issues around transport, the use and justification for a hotel on that site. Are there any particular comments in terms of your views on whether we should actually approve this. There aren't any, as you know, there's an extent application. It's an improvement in terms of massing, in terms of sunlight, daylight, to the extent application. And the only change of which now is from office to hotel. What are your views before we go to a decision on this? Kath? It's only because I can see you directly in front of me on my screen. No other reason.
I think that this is a small application and it is only 73 beds, but the difference in usage of that building is very different from an office building. As you say, offices will be closed weekends and evenings. I don't like being told one thing and then having to winkle it out that the information is inaccurate that we've been given. That's not good look.
No, and that's something which we'll take up. We've asked officers time and time again to sort of check the reports and you know, and monitor what comes before us, before committee. So we'll take that away. Bill?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've weighed up everything and I note the change of use. And I also note the concerns around traffic usage. And I take the point of Councillor Whittam's concern of the diagram, but I don't think any of them would change my mind and I would be mindful to approve.
Thank you, that's very clear. Councillor Chair, I'm just going around with, you know, members that are currently on my screen. There's no particular rhyme or reason.
Thanks, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I've ummed and ahed throughout this application, and I think having heard the points made in and around saturation, and having looked at the Google Maps myself and seen evidence myself what hotel provision there is as things stand, my mind can only point to something that's in the Southwark Plan, which says that we should look at ways to control licensed premises and hotels, which ensure a good balance of uses and protects the character of the residential areas. And I just think in this instance, based on the evidence that we've been given, and in parts it's been a bit patchy, I'm minded to reject this application on the basis that there are a number of hotels that are available, and I'm considering the character of the residential area in which this development has been proposed to be built. And my overall feeling is that hotels in this specific area, whilst welcomed, other parts of the borough will hugely benefit from having hotels, which will provide a point for people to stay and visit the local attractions that are nearby by bus and other modes of transport. So I think my position is quite clear based on the evidence that's been put before me, that there is a significant amount of hotel provision, and therefore this just only adds to the over-dominance of hotels in this specific locality.
Yeah. Is that despite the fact that we do actually have, you know, a case by which we've actually previously rejected an application, and obviously at the end of the day we're not in the business of losing appeals, and there was a very clear inspector's report in terms of over provision of hotels in the locality, which we actually previously cited as a reason for rejection, and that was dismissed.
Okay, well, I can only consider each application on
Indeed.
its own merit, and
Indeed.
based on the evidence that's been put before me and the limited amount of information in areas specific to the amount of hotel provision in this specific locality, considering that it's patchy, that I can't make a fully informed decision, I'm minded to reject the application based on the evidence that's been put before me today. So I possibly couldn't comment on previous applications, Chair.
Thank you. Well, no, you can't comment on the specific, but when we've got a inspector's report and soundings from that, then we actually use that invariably as guidance, as something guidance. But I take point taken. Thank you, Councillor Chair. Councillor Limpeth-Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually in a little bit of a uncomfortable situation in here because I was prepared to accept the application and pass the application. But first of all, I was not very happy with the response I was given on transport. And second, we just discovered that the information about the saturation of hotels is incorrect. That makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. And so I'm in two minds about it. And I think I understand, Chair, what you have said. I understand that your words were very eloquent and I appreciate what you have to say, but I think I tend to reject the application.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No. Thank you. I'm just going around. Who have I got? Councillor Seaton. Councillor Seaton, would you like to comment?
I've got it. I'm off mute now. Thank you,
Sorry.
Chair. It's okay. It is unfortunate that it didn't appear to be apparent until this meeting that we have an opportunity here to ensure that there is, in compliance to our policies, there is a balance. There's a balance between both commercial, residential, and other types of buildings and facilities in a given location. In this particular location, which has a sort of historic features to it as well, is one which I am quite familiar with. And I'm very, very much aware, Chair, that a previous application in another location, but had clearly been subject to decisions which I suspect even my colleagues here would not have accepted if given the opportunity. We now have an opportunity to ensure, reiterating compliance with our policies, that there is a balance between the various class usage buildings in a given locality. In this particular locality, it's quite clear that the report doesn't give light to the entirety of C1 usage in that location. Okay, and I suspect that is a significant deficit on what is reality. Okay. Secondly, it's quite obvious to me that transport will be an issue, given the very constrained site that this building has been located, and I appreciate the objector's view that in fact it will create problems for those who live there. And my last comment, Chair, really talks about height and massing. And whilst I appreciate that the previous application, this is, you could say this is arguably an improvement, I would have to argue that it's not a sufficient improvement. And for those and other reasons that I could articulate, but I won't right now, I'm not likely to support this application. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seaton. I thought that would be the case. Councillor Neil.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid if you're looking for a proposal for this development, you're not going to get it from me. I'm very pleased to read Mr. Cooper's letter, and it makes some very salient points. I appreciate that there is usually an assumption in favour of development, and I'm sure Councillor, I'm sure the local councillors wouldn't want me or us to stand in the way of providing jobs for local people, and that's not something that I want to do. Obviously, it's a very difficult time for the UK hospitality industry. I really don't want to make things any more difficult for them, but we've got to look at this this proposal in isolation and look at this proposal as we've got it on paper. The officer said, Alex said that it's 53 metres outside of the central activity zone, and whether it's 53 or 5.3, it's outside of the activity zone. I think that my understanding is that there is an over dominance of visitor accommodation in the locale, and as my colleague Councillor Carey says, other parts of Southwark might benefit from that, but I think this area would actually lose, on the whole, lose if a hotel with a 73-room hotel was sited here. Chair, also I've got concerns about transport, access to and from, and the safety of people around the building, especially at weekends, given that it's very busy with pedestrians. So for those reasons and others, Chair, I don't feel able to support this application. Thank you.
You're mute. You're mute.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Councillor Seaton. Obviously, I've been doing a sort of a bit of a tally, and so can I suggest that we adjourn the meeting and go into private session just to talk about this with officers and see what additional what we can, if there's anything that we can do to before we go to decision around this. So could I invite officers, move the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items. Sorry, what's that? I now move the public excluded from the
Sorry,
meeting.
Chair.
Yes, yes, could you do that? I'd like us to go into the pre-meeting. Perhaps we ought to use that link. Would you suggest, Gerald?
Yes, Chair, that's normally what we use. But you should also formally move to go into closed session with the motion I've just messaged you with.
Right. Have you put that in the chat? Oh, right now. So, colleagues, I now move the public be excluded. I now move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds, but they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 to 7 of the Access to Information Procedure Rules of the Constitution. Is that seconded? Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kath. All those in agreement? Agreed? Agreed, yep. All righty. So, colleagues, could you use the link for the pre-meeting, and we'll just have a little discussion about the implications of where I think the direction of this is going. All righty. Graham? Yeah, Councillor Neil?
I tried for more than 30 minutes to get a link to that team meeting. Right. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that again. But
officers, can you forward email? Would it be better if it was emailed to you? Email the pre-meeting link to Councillor Neil, please, and the rest of us if we join that now.
I'll try again.
So I think we'll need to leave this meeting and then reconvene in the